Hey guys, in this video we'll talk about Stealth Bomber Warplane, DoorDash safety features, Wise simplified payroll, Apple's mixed reality headset. The People's Liberation Army is close to launching the H-20 Stealth Bomber, a warplane that could effectively double its strike range. To strengthen its aerial capabilities, China has been steadily working on its 20 series aircraft. This includes the Y-20 heavy lifter, Z-20 helicopter, and J-20 stealth fighter. The H-20 is expected to fulfill the role of the stealth bomber which has been missing in China's strike options. Next, DoorDash is rolling out new in-app safety features to help ensure delivery people on its platform are safe before, during, and after every order. If DoorDash detects that a delivery is taking longer than expected, the app will automatically check to see if the delivery person is okay. The delivery person will be given the option to unassign themselves from the delivery without a penalty. Lastly, Wise Platform has launched a new service with leading global HR and payroll company Deal. The feature enables customers to send funds via Deal using just an email address, opening up 10 new currencies in Deal's payments infrastructure and eliminating 80% of the steps. This will simplify global payroll for over 10,000 Deal customers from SMBs to publicly traded companies. This transforms the experience of managing global payroll for Deal's customers, allowing employees to compensate their team instantly and conveniently in a desired currency. Here's something for you to think about. Apple's next major product, a mixed reality headset, will vault the company into a new era of computing. The device will run a new operating system dubbed Reality OS, which will include mixed reality versions of core Apple apps like Messages, FaceTime, and Maps. Virtual reality has seen its first sale successes, but whether many people regularly put on the headsets is questionable to say the least. Mark Zuckerberg made a huge bet on the metaverse, announcing his company's name change from Facebook to Meta. The move has resulted in billions of dollars in losses for his company, and Meta's latest quarterly earnings report revealed that the company's metaverse division has lost $9.4 billion this year already. Will Apple's mixed reality headset face backlash likened to Meta's metaverse? In summary, China is progressing rapidly in aerial capabilities with a new stealth bomber. DoorDash implements a new security feature that checks on the deliverer. Wise launches a new feature that streamlines global payroll in desired currency for HR. Apple's mixed reality headset is just a few months away. And now presenting this week's podcast. Hello everyone and welcome to podcast number 7. We have Jan with us today. How are you, Jan, today?
As always, fantastic. We kicked off another part of our Battlefield BAU program with one of our clients, which is always a great pleasure to do. And yeah, really excited about the progress we're making with Leadapreneur and growing our innovation metaverse, really. Because I think that's really how I kind of describe now what we're doing. Is I think it's the easiest way to say it, is we run an innovation metaverse that enables organizations to reliably and repeatedly innovate at scale and deliver ROI. Now, of course, the tricky thing in that, Hannah, is what on earth is a metaverse, right? And that's where I think that from a more philosophical approach, we can engage this subject more, which is, I think a metaverse is a place where meaning is made. It's a space where meaning is literally almost manufactured. So you don't just turn up to transact. That's a platform, right? You go onto Amazon, you go on to Grab, Uber, and you're performing a transaction. You want to get from A to B, you want to buy something, and then you leave. It's not meaningful. It doesn't involve your identity. It's not involving community beyond simple sort of seller-customer relationship, right? Whereas a metaverse, I think, is a place where we make meaning, and meaning is crafted, manufactured, it's made, and then, so in that sense, it's also something that is customized to the unique reality of the organization. So so let's use Leadapreneur, right? So one of our clients running Battlefield BAU is not the same as another client running Battlefield BAU, but meaningful work is happening. Meaning is being made, manufactured in terms of the innovation being produced. So I kind of have been, just riffing off that and excited to see our vision coming to life around this word and this concept. And I think what's hijacked the metaverse conversation is the technological aspect of it, rather than well, I would call it maybe the philosophical aspect of it, the conceptualization of what actually is it. I don't think slapping on some VR goggles and running around saying I'm in a metaverse really means anything. Which is why,
Okay. Apple
Burn.
and,
Yeah,
and Facebook, oh yeah, are burning right now.
it's just, you know, it's a lot of money is being spent, and that will lay the foundations for something interesting in the future. But that's not it. And it's almost interesting that it's like the tricky thing about disruption and being in tune with the dance with the universe is that you're not smarter than the universe. And so the universe has a wonderful sense of humor. So we might study to try and prepare ourselves for disruption. And if you're a big tech company, you're going to study all the disruptive theories, and you go get your Harvards and Silicon Valleys and MITs, right? And all the cleverest of clever peoples, and they're going to build all this stuff, and you're going to come up with a whole bunch of bullshit, basically, that's going to eventually convince you that you know the answer and you've sort of solved history, right? To kind of paraphrase George Satayama when he talked about the end of history in the 90s. And then you just get it colossally wrong, because life always goes in a different direction, right? And the sort of, you know, the Web3 reality and NFT, everyone was so convinced this is the future, right? And I think it's, well, clearly at the moment it isn't. Now, something will emerge, right? Something will emerge out of it, but it's not going to be in the direction that we thought it was. It's not going to be quite in the way that we think we imagined it to be. And so that's where I think it can be useful sometimes to look beyond the technology to sort of the more eternal, which I think was what philosophy can do, is that it peers through the noise of the now and sees what is actually important for humans and what is important. The philosopher Hannah Arendt talks a lot about this, is man, especially through the industrial revolutions, became this sort of enslaved animal, right? For a lot of people, you get in a box, your car, you sit in traffic, you arrive at a box, your cubicle, and you sit in front of a box, your computer, and you type vaguely meaningful things. Most of it you don't really care about. And you spend all day in this meaningless box, and then you leave in the box to go back to the other box. And it's just a bunch of boxes inside of boxes. And do you care about any of it? Maybe, if you're lucky, right? And so to call it sort of the animal laborans in Latin, the enslaved animal, the laboring animal. And what that does is it crushes spirit and soul and meaningness. And that's basically manifested in disengagement in the organization. That's why we just don't find our work meaningful anymore. And so the challenge is not to pay people more money, although of course that is important, but it's about making it more meaningful. If you double someone's salary, they're not going to work twice as hard. But if you double how meaningful that work is to that individual, they will work twice as hard. And I'm not saying that as a sort of a, hopefully I don't get misquoted by this in the future, but probably, who knows, internet. But what I'm just trying to point out there, that what mobilizes spirit is meaning. And of course, there should be enough money on the table, but to really come into ourselves as human beings, that's, I think, the promise of the metaverse, to create an environment, to create meaningful work that matters, in whatever domain that we choose to care about, right? And I think that's also then the promise, because traditionally, when work was more meaningful, you were a craftsperson, for example, you may be a carpenter, or, in pre-industrial age, they were still very small, whereas now we have sort of infinite domains. So you could be in multiple metaverses at the same time, making meaning and that really leads to the plurality of identity. And I think that's really the great conversation of the 21st century for humanity, is identity and identities, and managing them, especially with regards to the first law of cybernetics, and managing that variety. Because identity really is the mechanism that regulates repetition. And I know that, we've talked about the idea that reality is repetition, right? But what regulates the repetition? What decides what it is that repeats and what doesn't? What decides your reality? That's your identity, really. And so as we explore different realities through the metaverses, right, you can jump into all kinds of different spaces, become all kinds of different people, do all kinds of different things, right? That we have to kind of have that sense of self rather than getting lost in the noise. And so I think that thoughtful articulation of identity through a construct like Leadapreneur, being a leaderpreneur, that's really what struck me recently at the Singapore FinTech Festival, which was that the person is the platform. That's, I think, one of the great insights of leaderpreneur as a concept is, today we have a phone, right? And we think the phone is the programmable platform, and it is. But really where we will go is the person becomes the programmable platform, right? And so the core, so, you have imagine what makes Android, for example, or iOS so successful. It's a standardized architecture. So you have a standardized architecture, and then you can install apps upon it, and you can develop apps, and it's an ecosystem there, right? But it's really about standardization. That's essential for the whole thing to work. And so what the leaderpreneur concept promises is the ability to standardize the skill set and the mindset. And in doing so, you can then have an architecture in which you can invite individuals to kind of build their own capabilities. I think when you become an agile warrior, it's like installing an app, but it's like installing an app into your consciousness. The consciousness is the OS. And what we are doing is, you know, so someone who hasn't done the program, and then she does becomes an agile warrior, she has a new set of capabilities that were not there before, in a similar way to if you downloaded an app that, you know, for example, can deliver food to you, you now have something you didn't have there before. And now she comes back and she becomes a pathfinder. She has new capabilities unlocked, and becomes a strategos, has new capabilities unlocked. And then she could go become a digital explorer, shaman, captain, and always unlocking new capabilities, right? And so as we go across the innovation grid, that innovation grid really is an app store in a way. It's you know, in its primitive form, but the architecture is there, and the basic principles. And by making it standardized, other vendors and other people can come in and stack upon that and build upon it. So that's, I think, that sort of that what struck me a lot about that metaverse idea is the power of looking past the technology and looking at what's truly different, what is unique about that word, not just the technological aspect of it, and I think it's that return to making work meaningful again, and to making it a space where meaning is made, and we are the makers who make it.
Well, I have to say, sometimes you are this German bullet train that this Mauritian 1.0 train can't keep up with. I write one point and it's like already on the other point, but okay, we'll try. So I think what I take from this is what Mobilises spirit is meaning. And I think that's really powerful, especially today, where lots of people, we find them without meaning. But what would you say is the first step to finding meaning to your work? I know the tricky answer is join Leadapreneur, but other than that, what would you say?
Well, in one sentence, meaning is made by creating things you believe in for people you care about. This is actually what I published my my paper on in a peer-reviewed journal, and but I looked at the information theory about this, because what happens is when you do meaningless things, it's like you corrupt yourself. It's like a hard drive creating errors inside of itself, or noise. So rather than a hard drive writing information, it just writes noise and eventually corrupts the hard drive. And so this is the problem, is that when you perform meaningless work, every now and then it's fine, right? That's part of not life, and you just error correct. But everything in your life being meaningless all the time results in, I think this is why we have so much depression and negativity and nihilism and loss of value in the sense of being alive today. I mean, in the West, in America, I believe the leading cause of death for men under 30 or 35 is suicide. Right? It's a crazy number. It's really, really high. It's not a small thing. Yeah, it's really, I think this is a much greater crisis than we talk about. The meaning crisis. Yeah, you can go and Google that. I can say, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, are you sure? But also, hey, I mean, I'm so sorry, I'm going to cut you off, but adding on to depression, did you also see the 2 US shootings recently happening as well? Would you say that's part of it?
Well, I think that, yeah, long answer short, yes, I think it is. And what's happening is, in the way that reality is structured, it can be useful to understand the source of truth in the source of, shall we say, the authority within reality. So, for example, in traditional societies, meaning comes from the text, the Bible, the Quran. Why do we do things? Because it says so in the book. There's literally a book. Open the book. It says it. Follow it. There's some guys, usually guys, who are in charge of interpreting the book and telling everyone what to do. And basically, good is following the book, bad is not following the book. Very simple. And so in that sense, meaning is created by pursuing what the authority says is good, and that's it. And it's just that simple. And maybe you disagree, but there's no other real reality to it. Now, this is great because it's a very simple variety regulation mechanism. Doesn't really, just there's a book, you write a book, you follow the rules. If they're good rules, the society or the culture will survive and, you know, progress. But the problem is it doesn't allow a lot of individualization. So as the society or the system complexifies, which it inevitably does, because that's the process of life, more individuation takes place. And this is really where modernism came in. And modernism is defined as the breaking with tradition, which is you don't accept the text anymore. You don't accept the old ways of doing. And this is where in modernism, you get all the isms: capitalism, communism, feminism, environmentalism. And that's not a value judgment. It's just a description that now you can choose to be different. Before you could, for example, only be a traditional housewife, or you had to be a carpenter because that was your trade and that was it. Now you can be multiple things. But the difference is that you don't choose it. It's like your parents saying you can be a doctor or a lawyer. It's great. There is a choice, but it's not really your choice. It's just there's two paths that are presented to you. So it's better than tradition in the sense there is choice for some people, but on the other hand, you kind of don't have that full autonomy. And so meaning now transitions towards success within that profession, that categorization. I'm a successful lawyer, I'm a successful environmentalist, capitalist, communist, and that's where meaning comes forth. But now what we then see is as we further complexify in our societies, we want more individualization, and that's really what drives us into Industry 4.0. And so meaning now can be made in any way you wish. And that's the problem, because as we have gone through that transition from this meaningful tradition, modernism, and now individualism, you need these mega architectures to supply that. So what that means is, for example, you need, for example, in the West, we'd have Christianity, right? So Christianity is the mega architecture of the traditional meaning environment. But with the arrival of modernism, Christianity has died. As Nietzsche said, God is dead, right? And then someone wrote, Nietzsche is dead, God. So there's a little conversation there. But the point is that what we relied upon to make meaning is no longer seen as a valid authority. And so the rejection of the church, rejection of these things, and the embracing of things like science and consumption means that your validity is based on maybe your knowledge, or what you know about the world, or maybe how much nice things you can buy. But that's actually quite shallow, and it doesn't really speak to the human spirit, and it doesn't speak to meaning and purpose and a profound sense of why are we here and what are we here for. And so there's a meaning crisis, and especially in the West. One of the things that's been nice being here in Asia and working, for example, closely with you, you have your faith and it's very close to you. Like I can say that I don't know any, dare I say this, but like white Europeans who follow religion in any serious, meaningful way. It just doesn't exist as a reality layer. And so what we're seeing there is this crisis where we then end up in nihilism, which means nothing means anything at all. So fuck everybody, I might as well just kill them. And that's what happens. It spirals into this very savage negativity that's very hard for people of faith to understand, because when you have faith, being seen as part of God's creation or God's child, you have a place in the universe. You feel in some sense you're part of the creation. Whereas a nihilist doesn't have that. It's just literally a meaningless universe and nothing matters. It's kind of like the Joker in Batman, right? And that's real. It's really real. And so what happens, I think, is that then gets too much for some people and they just have a breakdown. And so they go and do those horrific things. Now, this is, of course, a very at a distance analysis, but I do think this is quite a crisis that we're facing in the West. And I don't think it's about to do with skin color, actually. I just want to clarify that. I think it's a cultural thing in the sense of the consequence of being overly liberal and democratic and going so far down that road that we've kind of lost a lot of the good things that, traditions can give us, actually. So there are some good things to it. And so ultimately, where I think we've arrived at, particularly our generation, it is that sense of where is the meaning in our work? Am I just destined to just do this job that I don't really like for these people I don't really, it's that Fight Club quote, right? We work jobs we don't like to make money to buy things we don't need, to impress people we don't care about. Is that it? Right? Is that truly the whole point of my existence? And when you really confront that, and you're like, oh my God, is that really it? And then you don't have an answer. The answer is, yeah, it is. Whoa, that's very heavy, right? And that can be very destructive. So I think, one of the things I really believe in around being a leaderpreneur is that ability to make a meaningful reality. It's not to tell you what the meaningful reality should be. It's just to give you the tools to make it. And so how do you make it? Looping back to that statement, believe things, create things you believe are important. You have to see yourself as a creator. You have to believe that it's important, and you have to do it in service of something greater than yourself. And so what's important here is that this is not about working at an NGO or something like that. It's about the way your mindset and your consciousness. So for example, if you're a bus driver, you could just say, oh, I'm a bus driver. Oh, it doesn't really matter. Everyone looks down on me. I'm not that important. I'm just a slave wage, right? And then that's it. Or you can be a bus driver. Let's take the 3 points there. You see yourself as a creator. How can a bus driver be a creator? Well, if the bus driver doesn't drive his bus, children can't go to school, people can't go to work, families can't see each other, people can't go to hospital, for example. The community cannot move.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah, I mean, it could be called a spin, but it depends on what you believe is true, right? And so it's beyond the spinning is that what do you believe in your heart of hearts, in your consciousness, how you truly see reality? And then, the bus driver has an opportunity to see themselves as a creator of community and human connection. The bus driver can then see themselves as saying, does this matter? Do I believe that's important? Do I believe what I do is important? Do I believe that I matter? Well, yes, because if I don't, then this little girl can't go to school, and then she won't get good grades, or these grandparents can't go and see their family, right? Or this young man can't make it to his job interview, right? And that matters in the moment of those individuals. And so then the third step is, do those people matter to you? Do those people getting on the bus, are they just faceless others? Like, there's that sort of phrase, NPC, non-playable characters, right? Are they just just non-entities, or are they real humans that you recognize and respect and acknowledge as humans, eye to eye, spirit to spirit, heart to heart, right? And so it's that kind of that coming forth into the world and consciously being conscious that is so important about how we engage with the world. And when you do that, you produce meaning, and you are able to bring reality into life and create reality as works for you. And this doesn't have to be some overly dramatic thing. It just means in your private local space, you are making it meaningful, and then it becomes beautiful, and then you can be happy.
I mean, it's interesting the way you put things into perspective, right? But also when you were talking earlier about Leadapreneur providing this OS, and we sort of, when a warrior comes into the program, for example, they're doing battlefield BAU, therefore they get this OS. And I wouldn't say our programs are different apps, but I would say that once you come into the program, you sort of equip yourself as an OS, and therefore you can download different apps into yourself. And the reason why I say that, because I take myself as the big example, where I was sort of just a medical physiotherapy student, and then I learned about innovation, and I became a leaderpreneur, and I started absorbing so much more than that what was given to me, right? And funny, yesterday around this time I was at Inti, and I was doing I was one of the judges for the design thinking competition. I was the same hall where you were, at the same stage, and it was such nostalgia. And the winning group was a group of physiotherapy students, and after they won, and no one was expecting them to win because they were like engineers and computer science and whatnot. After they won, I went to them because I had this screaming thing inside of me. I was like, you know what, don't just be physiotherapy student, don't define yourself to that. If you can do more, go ahead and do more, because they won this product competition, right? So that would be my point on why people should become leaderpreneur and become OS, because we give them tools to sort of go out, have meaning in your life, and absorb much more than what you thought you can.
Well, I mean, that's an amazing story, and wonderful for you to be able to experience the cycle coming back on itself, right? That's really cool. Really happy for you on that. And maybe that's also to kind of give some perspective there. Being a if you identify as being a physiotherapist, that's a modernist identity, because you are identifying with your practitioner, with your profession. I am a physiotherapist. But the problem with taking on the identity is you then constrain yourself by it. Well, if I'm a physiotherapist, I can't then be, I don't know, an entrepreneur. I can't then be, maybe a leader. I don't know, whatever terms you want to chuck in, right? And so by assuming that identity, you also constrain yourself. And that's the sort of the challenge. And it doesn't allow that deep individualization. So in the example then of maybe offering them the opportunity to be a leadapreneur, they can still maintain their physio identity as a physiotherapist, but they can now enhance it by installing leadership, management, communication, right? Being a warrior, being an explorer,
True.
a shaman, right? All these other elements upon it. And so they can kind of mix themselves more clearly.
Right. So Leadapreneur, apart from being a metaverse, we're also Android. No, making people Android. Okay. All right. So let's move on to a more fun conversation, Jan. World Cup is going on, and who are you rooting for?
I was rooting for Germany, but I think I was with my mates last night, having a few beers, and then very disappointed that we lost to Japan. And very happy for Japan because they earned it. Well done to them. They worked really hard, and Germans were just very complacent. And I mean, I am not a professional footballer at all, so I'll put that on the table. But if you were paid hundreds of thousands and your only job was to kick the ball, I'm not even saying you have to get it in the net. I'm just saying you have to.
Come on.
There's just a box with a net in it, and you just got to like at least get it in that direction. All the shots are but they're kicking it, but it's kind of going 4 stories, and it's like watching high school kids playing soccer, right? I was like, this is the elite of German football. They couldn't even.
Yeah, you're a sportsman. You know it doesn't work like that.
No, I am a sportsman. I do, and that's why I'm saying I think it's ridiculous. This is precisely my point. I think it just is evidence. But Germany had 1 goal disallowed because one guy was too lazy to run back on side again. They could have drawn.
Oh, is it off? Did they get an offside?
Yeah, the guy scored, nice goal, and it was his colleague who'd shot the ball earlier but missed. It bounced off the goalkeeper, I think. And he kind of was like, oh, he should have got back on side. Be hungry, seeing where's the next thing. You could see they would kick the ball and just be like, oh, oh, damn, that's a shame. There's no hunger, no aggression, no sharpness, no ferocity, no will to win, and they didn't deserve it. And I think it's just disappointing. Yeah. So anyway, you see.
Yeah, but I'm gonna write to them and tell them to have Jan as a coach, I think, for the next match.
They don't get terribly upset. I mean, and because it's sort of that, I wonder if it's that sort of, dare we say it, like Western arrogance. Oh yeah, we're big, tall German guys, because you can see that the Japanese guys are shorter, right? It's big guys, right? And then, and it's true, right? So you think, oh, I'm
gonna watch the highlights. I haven't, but I will. It sounds a fun match to watch. But what would you say about Saudi Arabia and what's the other one? Argentina. That was a good match.
I didn't get to watch that. I don't know. I mean, fantastic. What a story, I think, is it's a great story. And apparently the king of Saudi Arabia has bought Rolls Royces for everybody. That's the news I heard. So I'm very happy for them that they've all got Rolls Royces. It's kind of baller.
Imagine if they win the World Cup. What's going to happen?
Oh my God, that would be nuts. Winning the World Cup as Saudi Arabia in Qatar. Well, I mean, if dreams can come true, that'd be amazing. Yeah, wish them the best.
Maybe you should. I mean, if they do reach, I mean, it's really early to tell, but let's just say they do reach the finals, semi-finals. I think we should try to attend the match. Maybe they're gonna donate gold to everyone who attended the match.
Here, you walking out like, oh my God.
Well, you can dream. Okay, so before we wrap up, my last question to you is about Wise, because I'm a great fan of Wise and I know you are too. And Wise came up with this new feature where they're partnering with Deal, and you can have global payroll and paying people by just putting the email address. And I think that's really interesting, even for you, right? Imagine you have to pay all the people at Leadapreneur by just putting the email address and the amount of money. And won't that really facilitate all your process?
Yeah, it really would. Yeah. And, I think that the genius just there is really, understanding where the pain points are, right? And often it's not glamorous. It's just, I need to log in. And, that idea, I think you said there's an 80% reduction in actions.
Processes. Yes. Yeah. Eliminating 80% of the steps.
Yeah, so if, let's say I want to pay one of the members of our team, right? And let's say it takes, I'm going to make up a number, 100 clicks, right? And it's going to take 10 minutes. Well, that's not that much, but 10 people, that's like 100 minutes, but I get distracted. So now it's 2 hours, 3 hours, and it's this thing that I've just got to do. If it could take 10 clicks and 1 minute, right? A huge reduction, then that's infinitely easier, right? And so I think paying attention to where there is real value to be created by eliminating unnecessary work is just such a powerful form of innovation, because that's where people are going to keep coming back and keep using it, because you're saving them time and money and effort. And so I think it speaks to that, doing some really sensible innovation that hopefully, if well executed, will serve them well and enable them to keep growing their business. But strikes me as a great idea.
Well, thank you so much for the conversation, Yana. I really learned something today, I must say, because learning how to sort of find meaning in your life or in your work, that was interesting. And we also learned that you could be the potential coach for the German team for World Cup, maybe next time. But with that said, I just remind people to believe in yourself, be brave, be brilliant, be bold, and build your better world.
Great. Thank you, Hannah. Always great with you.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the Leadapreneurs YouTube channel to get your weekly updates.